All right, ladies, welcome back to the Friend Forward podcast. This is the show where we are dedicated to unpacking the complexities of women's friendships. I'm Danielle Bayard Jackson, a women's relational health educator and author of the book Fighting for Our Friendships. And it's my job to study what the research has to say around women's cooperation, communication, and conflict. In this week's episode of the Friend Forward podcast, I want to look at some signs that you might not be as ready for community as you think you are. Let's dive into it. Now, community is a buzzword. We've talked about it a lot on this show. I've written articles about it, and we have some previous episodes on community. Now, we've done an episode on this before. I'm going to do a brief, 2-minute recap of the main points because then I want to lean into some signs that you might not be as prepared for community as you think. But friendships grow from community. So are we plugged in and do we have a community mindset? That's something to look at. So hopefully me sharing these phrases with you, these statements, can give you an indicator of where you can look to improve. And I'm talking to myself as well. Okay. Saying it to you, but girl, I'm talking to me too. So here's the first statement that might show you need a little mindset shift. If you say the phrase, well, as long as I'm safe, I'm good. Let me give you some examples. I'm living here in Florida and our last hurricane season was wild, right? So we're always staying tuned to the news. What's going on? Where's the evacuation zones? If I continue to check in just to see, okay, are we good? Are we good? Oh, okay, it's going to hit them. Okay, whew, but we're good, right? It's not going to hit us, right? We're good, okay? That kind of automatic thinking, but am I okay? That's something to kind of look at, right? Now, I understand that we're looking for ways it's going to personally impact us so we know how to prepare. That's not what I'm talking about. But if we are always experiencing relief and we're only concerned when it's going to hit us or when we're going to be affected, that says something. I'll give you another example. We've got a lot of things going on right now in our country specifically. I'm talking about for Americans because I know other countries watch and listen to the show. These ICE raids that are happening, I'm going to speak on it. If you're tuning that out because you're thinking, well, my family has nothing to worry about, that's a problem. If I'm thinking that's really unfortunate that these ICE raids are happening to other people, but we're safe. And as long as we're safe, we're good. No, we're not good. Those are our neighbors. Those are our friends. Those are our classmates, our coworkers. Those are people at our church being snatched up, right? And so we are affected by that. One, because when we just look at a general attitude toward humanity, if something happens to you, it happens to me. And then also because it's coming down the pipeline. So it's just a matter of when is it my turn for my group to be impacted. When we talk about a shared sense of responsibility and a shared sense and collective duty, that means if something is happening to a certain group or to other people, I'm not immediately thinking, wait, will I be affected? And if not, then I no longer have concern. We need to get into the practice of finding ways to feel like, wait, if it's happening to them, there's something I need to do about that. And also, I can't totally blame you, right? We are burned out. We're seeing headlines on social media. We're seeing headlines on the news. We're constantly bombarded with updates and developments of horrible things that are happening. And so I totally understand if for some people, just to survive, you find yourself tuning out, going numb, disassociating, and only being on alert for the things that threaten your direct survival. I get that. I get as a means of survival and maintaining your mental health, only concerning yourself with things happening in your bubble. Okay? All right, we got this. Here's another phrase that might indicate we've got some internal work to do before we're totally ready to be in authentic community. If you often say the phrase, somebody should do something about that. There's actually a book, I'm going to put it here, that I read with my kids. We got it from the library and it spoke to this and it really called me out because I was like, oh shoot, I have definitely said that a couple times this week, right? Whether it's passing trash on the street and thinking like, God, somebody needs to pick up around here, right? Well, I need to act because no, it's not fair that somebody else put it there thoughtlessly with an expectation that somebody else will cover it. No, it's not fair that I pick up trash that I didn't make. But yes, it's true that this is my environment too. This is my space. We share this space, and I feel a sense of ownership and responsibility. Here's a third statement that might indicate that we need some mindset work before we're really ready to engage fully with authentic community. If I don't show up, it won't matter. Here's my theory on this. I see this happen a lot, and I think this speaks to our self-esteem. You may have seen, like on TikTok and Instagram, I've seen all these videos of people talking about how nobody showed up to their birthday party. Nobody showed up to an event that was really important to them. And I'm like, why do people do that? And in the comments, we see people like, oh my gosh, that's so messed up. I can't believe that. And I think, okay, we kind of go to instantly vilifying the people who cancel. I have heard more than one person say to me that maybe the reason they cancel plans is because they feel like they won't be noticed. It's not going to matter. There's other people there. The host doesn't really care if I show up or not. Like really having a lack of belief in how much their presence matters, how much their voice matters. We saw a lot of people who did not show up to vote in the last election. I wonder how many of them thought, well, certain cynicism around government, but thinking like, does it really even matter? Do I really even matter? So to some degree, to be an active member of a community, you have to believe that you being in the community matters. So yes, go to the event. It matters that you're there. It matters that you're there, and it makes an impact to some degree that you're there. Maybe I don't immediately see my impact, but I know it matters. But that's you having to believe that you're worthy of showing up and that it matters that you're there. So I would challenge you the next time you cancel plans, the next time you don't go to that PTA meeting. Oh my gosh, I'm saying this to you, but I'm really saying it to myself. The next time I'm going to say it to myself because I'm like saying this and I'm thinking, oh my God, I need to hear this myself. Danielle, the next time you think it doesn't matter if I go to that parent-teacher committee meeting, it does matter. Your voice matters. You need to be informed. You need to contribute. Okay. Okay, now the next phrase is something that we touched on in our last episode about cynicism. But if you often say the statement, you can't trust people these days, I want you to look at that. Now, I'm not going to go too deeply into supporting this particular statement because we did a whole episode on how cynicism negatively impacts our friendships. But for now, I'll say this. When people trust each other, they share with each other. They allow themselves to receive help. And that exchange, that system of constant giving, taking, and exchanging is literally the social fabric of like any community. The next statement that might reveal a lack of readiness for community is this: I don't owe anybody anything. Now, there's this wonderful video by my friend Amanda White. She's a therapist. You might know her on Instagram for the account Therapy for Women. And she has a great video on this.
I'm going to say something a little bit spicy. You ready? You do owe people things. I get when the world is burning and things feel awful that you just want to pull away and you want to just focus on yourself and do whatever makes you happy. The problem is, while that might feel good in the short term, in the long term, you're going to end up more isolated and disconnected and with less people in your life. Unless you are a very rare person who truly doesn't value relationships, most of us need other people.
Communities that thrive on exchange, trust, it's because they largely feel that they owe it to their community, and their community feels that way about them. That I'm responsible, that we're responsible for one another. And the final thing I want you to think through is this statement. If it's not convenient, I'm not going to do it. Now, many of us might not say that explicitly, but if you find yourself not attending an event with your community, showing up on certain committees, following through with plans for a friend, showing up for that volunteer thing, whatever it is, because it's disruptive to the plan that you had. If you find yourself not helping the friend who asked you if you could help her move, or if you could pick her up from the airport, or if you could come to her event on Saturday, or if you want to hang out on Tuesday, and if one of your main reasons for following through is because it was easy and convenient, but as soon as it's happening at a time that's not convenient for you, or when you find that like, yeah, she's counting on me, but I just don't have the energy today, sometimes those things are valid. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes life is life, and you're like, I just can't do it today. But the question becomes, is that the exception or the rule? At some point, we have to understand that being in community means I'm going to be inconvenienced. When I think about my closest friends, these are people who I'm willing to incur a greater cost for. They're my community. So sometimes the needs they have, sometimes showing up for them comes at a time that doesn't really work for me, and I make it work. That doesn't mean overgiving. That doesn't mean people pleasing. That's a whole other episode. That's something to look at. That's all I'm saying. Now, what I want to do now is show you a clip from an interview that I did with Cat Lantigua. She's the author of Build It and They Will Come, a guide to architecting intentional community. And after I share a bit from my interview with her, I'm going to share 3 examples of things that I have done to help me be a little bit better about being in community.
I have been heavily influenced by Adrienne Marie Brown and Octavia Butler, and kind of have tried to approach my understanding of community building as something that is tethered to futurism and imagination and creativity. And so I'm constantly just thinking about ways that we can come together that we haven't necessarily seen before. You know, I kept hearing the word community builder, and I was like, well, how can we build if we don't really have like the design yet, if we don't know what the layout is? And I started to think about where I feel most impactful, and my realm is in that of design and imagination. And so I think that I had to scale it back a little bit and be like, okay, well, we can build community, but let's go a step earlier in that process and think about what kind of community we want to build, so that we can all kind of let each other know what the design plan is, and we can work towards the same thing, clarifying what our goals are, what our missions are, and informing each other of what our focus should be put into. When we see all of the things that aren't functioning, we think that something has to be done about this, but we don't actually design it. We don't get clear about what it is exactly that we want to see in reality. And I think that has led to a lot of conflicts, a lot of confusion, a lot of energy that is at first inspired and ready to take action, but people burn out along the way because they don't know exactly where it is that they're heading. I think the title Build It and They Will Come is so important, because it's like, if you create the space, you'll see that people who have been looking for it will be like, look, the thing I've been looking for, I'm going to go. And then all of a sudden, you have all of these people that you thought didn't exist come out of nowhere. And it's because you put out the signal. So just put out the signal and just see what happens. Like, I would just say, get out of your own way, lean into your creativity, lean into imagination, and then you will see that attracts a lot of beautiful humans.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Friend Forward podcast. Remember, full episodes are available exclusively on our Patreon, which we refer to as office hours, and we'd love to have you join us. You can join anytime by visiting betterfemalefriendships.com/podcast. I hope to see you over there.
Let's go.